So this video is on the Chandler button sewing machines. This is a model or class 481, and this is a 471, a little older machine. They're both pretty much identical with slight difference. This one, the adjustment for the clamp starting opening is on the right side, and this one is on the left. Other than that, they're pretty much the same. First off, I just wanted to say that my strong suit is sewing machine repair, not filming. So bear with me, as there's a lot of jiggling or whatever, and it's hard to see and do this at the same time. So basically, these machines sew buttons on. These two machines belong to a dry cleaner, and so they sew buttons on a variety of different sizes, and they have two. And since there's slightly different distances between the holes of the buttons, I've set one up for larger buttons and the other one for smaller buttons. So you can see there's a variety of different sizes of the buttons. What's interesting about buttons is the motion of the sewing is going to be up and down, not side to side. So when you do a button, for instance, like this, it gets placed in the machine like this, not like that. With a 4-hole button, it's the same thing. It goes in this way, not that way. However, that said, the distance between the button holes from right to left is smaller than it is, in this position, the distance between the center of this hole and the center of the lower hole is smaller than if you turn it this way and go from the center of the top hole to the bottom hole. So buttons are generally sewn like this, not like that. However, you can do it in this position, but I've set these machines up so that the stroke of the needle is such that it accommodates the button this way, because you can on these machines there's a 2-hole and a 4-hole setting. Both of these have that. So in the 2-hole, what it does is it goes up and down and through the holes, and then it ties off and stops. When it does the 4-hole, it does this side, and then it moves over to the other side and then ties off and stops. So if you're going to do the button in the X pattern like this, then you have to do that and then the center, and then when it moves over, you have to stop, move the button, the garment, so that it goes in the other holes, and then finish it, and it's kind of a pain. So that's why I've set these two machines up that way. One for the smaller button and one for the larger button, so that the needles don't strike the needle and damage the needle and the machine and the button. So that said, let's look at some of the controls here. This is the crank that turns the mechanism. It doesn't have a motor, and it always goes clockwise. Never turn it counterclockwise, only clockwise. Then you have these two levers. These two levers here. This one raises and lowers the button clamp. This one, when you're finished sewing a button on, it stops automatically, and this button here releases it and lets the next cycle go. This control here opens and closes the clamp. It's spring loaded. Now the clamp, you don't want the clamp to go all the way closed when there's nothing in there. The needle can strike it, and this has happened many times on this machine. The needle has struck the side of the clamp, and it's not good. So this adjustment here, you can loosen this screw, and now the minimum, that's what it is in the resting position. So you can move this accordingly, and you generally want to open it to where it is slightly smaller than when you put a button in. So when you put a button in this machine, that it makes you have to actually open the clamp up to get the button in, and then it clamps it, and then when you pull the button out, it should close slightly. And so this one is adjusted on the other side, and I've got it set for a smaller button. So this opens the clamp, and this sets that other adjustment. The other adjustment is your tension adjustment, which is this one. I would refrain from moving that. Once it gets set, don't move it, and never move this one at all, because it's important that it's set in the factory, and these have been moved, so I had to fix that. So basic threading of the machine is important, and I'm gonna go over to this one because it's a little easier to see. It's hard to describe. You can download the manual from Chandler.com. I think it's ChandlerSewingMachines.com or something like that. Anyway, the threading goes from the spool. Oh, and incidentally, I'm using high quality polyester thread. This is Gutermann. You can use other threads. Cottons might break a little easier. This is going to be smooth, strong, and goes through the machine better. You can use a button thread, but it's very heavy. I wouldn't recommend it for a number of reasons. One is it tends to pop out of the tensioners because it's so stiff and unwieldy, and it also it doesn't sew well on these little tiny buttons. So just use good quality polyester. It's going to hold, it's going to go through better, it's just all around going to be better. So it goes from the spool up through the loop, and this is important here. It goes through the hole in this pin. It goes on this side of the tension discs. Oh, by the way, you want to raise this up. Raise the clamp up to thread it, because it will open up these tension discs, and it'll open up these tension discs, and it will bring this control out. So that's lowered, and this is raised. So we're going to go from the spool up through here, through the hole, and on this side of the tension disc, and make sure that you get the thread in between this lower support and the disc itself. So it has to go through the disc and then around this other side of the post, and that keeps it from coming out. If it went on this side of the post, the thread would pop out really easily. So it has to go around there. Then it goes through the discs on this tensioner, and once again it goes around. This one had popped out, so it goes through the disc. Let me put my pointer down. This is where I struggle with the camera. So it goes through the two discs, and then you have to go around that post, and then it's in there properly. And I'll pull the slack out by pulling the thread from the spool. So that's how that works. Then it goes through the hole here. Then it goes through this post. Then it goes through this post. Then, after it's gone through this post, then it has to go through this hole. Now, I can pull the thread through, and it's tight, because when this lever is, when you lower the clamp, it opens this up. So you can see that little button pops out, and it actually clamps the thread right here when the foot is up. So when you get to this point, you just need to lower it down, and then you can poke the thread through there, and it'll go. But when the thing is raised, it'll clamp it. So so you go. I've got a little bit of a mess going on here. Darn it. Okay, so after it goes through here, let me unthread this. Then it goes underneath there. Then it goes through the take-up lever from left to right. Not easy in trying to film at the same time, or not film, but record. So now we've got the thread going from here, underneath this little thing, and through the take-up lever, through the guide. Whoops, let's see if I can see this. Through the guide there. And then when you put the needle in, there are, let's see if I can find, what did I do with the needles? God. Okay, well, hold up the needles here. Had them laid out. Jeez. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. So these are the needles that you use. They're a TQX1 or a 175-1. You can use these, which is a 175-1F, and that means it has a flat side. But I would use the 175X1s. They're round needles. They don't have a flat side like a regular household needle. So you have the shank, the shaft, the eye, and the point. Now the front of the needle has a groove going down it. If you can look, you can see that groove going down the front of the needle. Then on the back side of the needle, there's a slight scarf. It's a little cutout above the eye of the needle. And here's a needle. So this is a large needle. You can see the front of the needle is the long groove. There's a scarf above the eye, and that's the back of the needle. So this needle needs to be put in the machine in this position so that the groove is in the front and the scarf is to the back. And don't ever use a bent or blunted needle. Just put a new needle in if it gets damaged. So once you get the needle in, oh, and this, by the way, when you use these needles, you probably want to use a size, this is a 90-14, which is a good size. It's actually the thickness of the shaft of the machine. It's 0.9 millimeters. That's why it's a 90. Means it's 0.9 millimeters thick. So cut a nice blunt point, and let's see if I can thread this while holding the camera. Can't do it. Such a pain. Optivisor. Oh, now I can see. Okay, so it threads from the front to the back. Okay, so when the foot, not the foot, the clamp is in the down position, then you can pull the thread. And make sure you have, a couple inches of thread. Otherwise, it'll get pulled out. So how you operate this machine is take a button, okay? Make sure that the clamp is in the down position. You can set the button in place. You can, if you have the clamp not so it's all the way shut, but it's slightly larger, then you can pretty much just slide this in and it'll hold it. And you wanted to bump it up against the back of the holder and then align the holes so that they're straight. That looks pretty straight to me. So then you want to take your fabric, your shirt or whatever. Now, this material here, always use a stabilizer. It's a great thing. You can just pull it off the shirt or the garment, and you can pick that stuff out, but it'll go away. But this stabilizer, this is a Tear Easy. It's a soft, lightweight tearaway stabilizer, and it works great. There are other kinds you can use, but that's easy. You just cut a piece. You can use it a whole bunch of times before you have to get a new piece, so it goes a long way. So then you're going to take your garment, lift up the button holder, place it wherever it needs to be, and then take your thread from on the side and just you can just kind of hold on to it. And then you want to pull this lever. Do you hear that click? Now it's released and the cycle can begin. So turn the hand wheel clockwise, always clockwise, and you'll see that it's probably going to jiggle quite a bit. It's going to go through that, and then it's going to go through the next hole and just rotate it. Sorry, I'm going to try to do this without jiggling, but now it's switched over to the other side, and then it stops. That means it's completed its cycle. Now this doesn't leave a lot of thread. I would suggest on a small button like this, if you're using high quality polyester, it's pretty thin and very strong, so you can get away with going on it twice. Pull the lever back and start the process again, and it will do the same. It's locked up, that means it's finished, and that doesn't look too bad. Then you can lift the clamp and just pull the button out, and it should be cut. Then you can take, that looks pretty good. It's got a nice tension. Looks good on the back. I would suggest getting some fray check. You can buy it in the sewing supplies. And just put a little bit of fray check on the top, on the back, probably more so on the top. Just one little drop, just quickly a drop, and it'll dry, and then it won't come out. Because that's the bugaboo of these buttons is you can actually pull it out. But that looks great. And the same goes with this machine over here. Again, this one's used for larger buttons. This is for smaller buttons. So let's see. If you're going to do a two-hole button, you loosen this control and bring this from the 4-hole to the 2-hole and then tighten it. And then you can do a 2-hole button. And it's going to do the center. But so I've got this set up so that the stroke is a little bit smaller than the distance from here to here. So I would, if you're going to use one machine for all buttons, just make sure that it's not going to strike the button when you do that. And if you do need to change it, you can, but you have to go into this port over here, and it's a little bit involved. It's not too hard, but it's just try not to have to do that if possible. So that is this machine. The same goes for this one. This one is set up for a larger button. And interestingly, this button and this button, the distance, even though this is a large button, it has a small button pattern. You can see the difference in the holes, the distance between the holes. So if I line them up, the top one, you can see the difference there. The top hole is perfectly aligned, but the bottom one, the needle's going to strike somewhere. So in between, it's something like that, which it'll work. But so the larger button, you need to take a look at the button before you actually sew it on. So this one is set for 2-hole. I'm going to loosen it. It's set for 2-hole. Now this one pops in, and this machine is old, so you just got to make sure that the button doesn't slide forward while you're sewing it. So line up your buttonholes, make sure that they're straight. Take your fabric, your garment, whatever it is, raise her up, drop it down, make sure nothing's shifted, which it did slightly. So that looks pretty good. So we're gonna start the process, which I think this one may have already been going. Locks up. Check and see. Well, it looks great, but if you want to get a little bit more thread on there, you just click it and it starts the process again. Forward and back a bunch of times. Locks. Whoops, I didn't mean to hit that one. I meant to hit this one. Just pull it out, and whoops, the thread is already cut. It's looking good. A little bit of fray check. Snip that off, and it's looking great. And then you just tear this stuff away, and you're good to go. So this machine, again, is the Chandler. This one's a class 481. That's 471. Cool machines. Not sure when they were made, but my guess is probably 60s. I don't know. Just really don't know. I started doing sewing machines in 1983, really. Was involved in them before that, but really it wasn't till 83 that I started, and I didn't work on these then. So anyway, there are adjustments. I would suggest getting the instruction book from the Chandler website. It's got how to operate it. It also has adjustments for repairing them in there. I'll tell you, it's an interesting repair job, but it's doable, but you just have to have some sewing machine skills. So anyway, that's it on the Chandler. Have fun.